Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Today, I'm going to be painting Country Winter Barn, and I'm sipping on some cider tea. And this painting that I'm doing today, I was super excited that I got to do it because it's a spin-off of a painting I did, I don't know, 8-10 years ago. I used to have a live paint sip studio that I gave classes all the time in, and I had a winter barn that I did there quite often, and one of my Patreon members sleuthed through my old pictures, I guess, and discovered this old painting. Her name is Missy Tammy. She's been around my Patreon program since the beginning, and she found this old painting and said, "Hey, do you think it'd be a cool idea if you made that into a tutorial?" So I did think it was a cool idea, Missy Tammy, so thanks for the suggestion. I did freshen it up a little bit. It is a little bit different than the other painting that I did, but I do want to thank her for the suggestion because I'm always open to anything that you guys are thinking. I love hearing from you. I love all the ideas that you throw my way. Some of them I will, grab on tightly to and create tutorials or other fun projects for us to do. So send along your suggestions as much as you'd like to. So let's see, what else? I think that's it. If you want to learn anything about the Patreon membership program, I have that down in the description below. But I think right now it's time for us to let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, fire red, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, Mars black, deep yellow, and green oxide. And of course you can switch up those colors too if you'd like. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'm going to be using for some drawing. And then I have 3 brushes from my personal brush line, which is Michelle the Painter brushes. I have a 3/4 inch wide flat bristle brush, a number 6 round synthetic, and a number 3 round synthetic. And I might refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process, or I'll call them out by name. But of course you can switch those up as well if you're painting along with me. And if you're painting along with me, you're probably going to want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I do provide you with a few additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link to my shop where you could purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same size and type of the canvas to the same type of paints and brushes and all the good stuff in between. You can also purchase from my shop things individually, like the brushes from my brush line. So that's there. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what I'm going to be doing for the first step is I'm going to be painting a base coat onto my canvas. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to use are black, blue, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating what's referred to as a gradient, where I'll have it a little bit darker and more blue up at the top. I'm going to fade it down to lighter in the middle, and then I'm going to go back to dark down at the bottom. We'll be using this as our sky, as the base for our landscape and the ground, and it'll help us through the painting process have a nice easy experience. So I'm going to start with blue, a teeny touch of black, just a teeny touch, I don't need a lot, and white on my brush. So blue, then just a touch of black and a little bit of white. So the black and the white is going to desaturate my blue so it's not super duper bright. and it will allow me to have a nice atmospheric dimension up at the top. So I'm just kind of blending it on my canvas with a left to right type of brush stroke. And then what I'm going to do for the next load of my brush is I'm going to not pick up any more black. I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue and white. So almost equal parts of the blue and white, maybe a little bit more white there. About equal parts of my blue and my white. I'm going to do the same thing, which is just kind of blending it with that previous section, just going left to right to give myself a nice soft kind of transition. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick up white paint on my dirty brush, and this is going to get my sky, what'll be my sky, to go lighter and lighter as it's coming down my canvas. So I am pushing my brush pretty hard so it can release any of those or some of those blue tones that might be in there. I don't want to go all the way white with my sky, so if you find that all of the blue and grayish type of tones are no longer existing as you're painting, you could certainly add a little bit more blue and or black to your brush in order to continue to see some color. So you can see it next to my white canvas, how I do in fact still have color coming off of my brush, even though I'm just picking up white at this point. And this way, this allows me to get this nice natural gradient coming down that sky. Again, I don't want it to go super white on me, so if you are finding that you don't see any difference between that canvas and the color you're creating, then you'll want to start, you might want to put some additional colors back in. So now that I'm about 2/3 of the way down my canvas, now I'm going to start adding back the blue and the black. So I'm going to pick up a touch of blue on my dirty brush. I'm going to start adding this back in. So I can blend it in with my previous section. So when I blend in, I'm going to go up a little bit. So something like this. And now the next time I go to load my brush, I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue, a touch of black, just a teeny tiny touch, and a little bit of white. So this is going to start to get it to be a little bit duller and maybe a touch darker. And this is going to give me some great dimension underneath my snow, or as part of my snow, as I go through the process of making that snow have some dimension to it and look nice and fluffy and have some great details to it. So again, I've just continued to pick up the black, blue, and white as I'm finishing out this little section in through here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue and white on my dirty brush for this little area in through here. And then what I'll do before I say that I'm done with this step, what I do is I'll take my brush and just kind of, with a very light pressure, just kind of go back and forth, making sure I hit all the spots on my canvas and didn't really miss any. We are going to be doing a second coat on most of this, not necessarily the top of the sky. That's going to have some trees and stuff. So I'm just using a light pressure on my brush, kind of going back and forth, just blending out any spots that I might not like as much as I had anticipated. And then we're going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to put the base coat on for our back trees and finish the sky, if there's any little touch-ups on the sky to do. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to use are black, brown, blue, and white. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be finding where I want my back trees to meet my foreground land. So I'll be drawing with my paintbrush a little line where we're going to have that foreground land. And then we're going to be using a circular type of brush stroke, kind of scrubbing the paint on there, scumbling, to get a very soft, out of focus kind of forest started. I'm going to start down at the base of my distant trees with a dark color, which will be my black and my brown. And as I go towards the top, I'll make it lighter with my maybe a little bit of blue, brown, and white to get it to just kind of really have some nice soft edges. So I'm going to start, and if there's any little touch-ups in the sky that I want to finish or that I feel need touching up, I can do that too. But I'm going to do the land first, and then I can use that same soft brush stroke to enhance any of these clouds or make the sky a little bit softer, which I don't really think I need to do much, but I might, when I get there, want to make it softer looking. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of brown and black on my brush at the same time. So just a little tiny bit on the tip of my brush. I'm going to find myself the halfway point on this left hand side, up top to bottom. So for me, my halfway point is about here. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go about halfway between that and the bottom of my canvas, which takes me about here. I'm going to go just a touch below that. So something like this. So just under a quarter of the way up my canvas on the left hand side. And then on the right hand side, if I find myself my halfway point, I'm going to come down about 2 inches from that. Give myself another little marker. I'm going to connect these 2 markers with a really soft, gentle kind of rolling line. It doesn't, like, almost like a little hill type of way, but nothing really major. Once I've got that on there, I'm not going to go any farther down my canvas. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to rub it up. So I'm going to take that, whatever that wet paint is, and the remnants on my brush, and I'm just going to rub it up in this circular motion. And you're going to have some areas that you can go up higher with because there's wetter paint. Don't worry if this line that's meeting the landscape is the foreground is not perfect, because we will adapt to that in a little while. And then again, I'm just kind of rubbing this up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some brown with a teeny touch of blue. So brown plus a little bit of blue. These two will almost make a greenish tinge because the cobalt blue has a little bit of yellow in it, so doesn't the brown. So when they react together, it can make kind of a little greenish tinge, which will make it look like it's off in the distance. So I'm starting in my dark area. Again, I have very little bit of paint on my brush, and then I'm just rubbing it up. So something like this. This is going to give us the illusion of distant trees within that forest. And once I've got that, a good assortment, I think I want to come up a little bit higher on this side over here. So again, I just pick up a teeny tiny bit on the edge of my brush and just rub it on here. And if you see little scratch marks from your brush, you can either accept it or just kind of lightly, with light pressure, you can brush them out as they're drying. But we've got lots of stuff that's going to be on top of this that will hide any of those imperfections. So now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of brown and a teeny tiny bit of white on my brush, on my dirty brush. And I'm going to do that same kind of process. So I'm going to just get it to blend in a little bit with my bottom area, and then I'm going to bring it up, and you can start to see how I'm getting these really nice soft little edges that are going to almost just disappear within that sky. So this is brown. That was probably a little bit too much paint on my brush, which is fine. And I'm just going to have it come down, and as I go up into that sky, I just want it to be uneven. So I've got some areas that are looking a little higher than others. Some are going to be a little browner than others. Some are going to be a little lighter or darker than others. It's all going to just be part of an illusion that we are creating in this distant atmosphere. You can even bring it up a little bit in through here. I'm not going up all the way. I'm kind of going up maybe on this side, almost, you know, where it's 3 or 4 inches away from the edge of my canvas. And again, I'm just trying not to make it look the same the whole way. So this will make it look a little bit more natural, and just allowing for these really soft edges to almost just disappear in that sky. So I'm digging the way that that's looking, and I think I don't want to do too much more to that. So if you had any areas in the sky that you felt wanted more attention, you could certainly pick up a tiny bit of white on your brush with maybe a teeny tiny bit of blue, just itty bitty bit, not much, maybe even a little bit of water on my brush, just to kind of smooth out any little areas. I didn't wash my brush, so there's a touch of that brown still on there, which is just allowing for a real soft application to happen on top of what I already did for the sky. So this is a great way to just kind of blend out any little imperfections, adding almost like a glaze of sorts onto that sky. And then I have a tiny spot up at the top that I want to attend to, up and through here, that seems a little unfinished. So again, just a teeny tiny bit. I picked up a tiny bit of black that time with my blue and white, because that's what I started with up and through here, and then just kind of allowing for myself to add just an itty bitty bit right on top. And then we are going to be using, we're going to use our number 6 round brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this brush away, take out the medium round, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint some distant tree trunks and branches. I'm going to be using my number 6 round. You could certainly use the number 3 round too if you get into this process and you think that you might want a smaller brush to accomplish this. You could certainly use the number 3 round or a smaller round. The colors I'm going to be using are black, brown, and white and blue. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing these very minimalistic type of vertical strokes using multiple colors on my brush at the same time, so I can get some variety in the colors. I'm going to be doing little branches kind of diagonally. So I'm going to start with all 4 colors on my brush at the same time. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of black, a little bit of brown, a little bit of blue, and a little bit of white. So I have all 4 colors at the same time. You could really layer them in any order on your brush as well. You can also dip your brush in your water and just tap it off on your paper towel. That will put a little bit of moisture within your bristles. That'll allow you to get lots of these marks. When I do this, I go really fast and I just kind of let my hand create these. The trick though is to try and keep a lot of them vertical as opposed to going diagonally. So if you start, say, in the middle and you're doing these vertical lines, if you don't move your body enough, you might start to tip them one way or the other. So just kind of what I like to do is watch the edge of my canvas. That gives me a visual kind of marker that says, okay, well, this is vertical, and I can just use that as kind of my visual guide to make sure I stay vertical for most of these. And again, I'm just kind of at this point doing vertical lines with whatever comes off of my brush. I'm finding that I'm running a little bit out of paint, so I'm picking back up those 4 colors. And this time, maybe it turns out a little bit more with white or brown or a little bit with blue. I'm not really looking to make these really dominant in the composition. I'm really just looking to make them appear as if they are in the background. So I'm doing lots of vertical. Then once I'm pretty satisfied with the number of vertical ones that I've got, you can see I started over here with doing a couple of diagonal type of ones. I don't necessarily again need a lot of detail in through here. You can get some of them to kind of hide within the tippy tops of those trees. It's just a matter of giving the viewer a basic kind of illusion of these distant type of trees. And I am using you know, every now and again a little bit of extra white on my brush in order to not necessarily make it look like there's snow on these, but to dull down and make that color really almost just fade into the landscape and go off into the distance. So just little kind of marks in through here, and again just allowing myself to be very carefree. These are just a subtle background type of element here, so I don't need it to do anything more than just guide the viewer's eyes into understanding that this forest goes back deep. And then once you've got this done, we are going to be using our, we're going to use the large bristle brush for the next step. So, ooh, I just picked up a whole bunch of red. Hold on a second. I wanted to do a couple more and then I picked up a whole bunch of red. So white, brown, black, and blues going back on my brush. I wanted to do a couple more in through here just so we can see some of these other marks. So you can put this brush away, take out the your large bristle brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting some evergreen trees that are kind of on the same, they're in the foreground, but they're way behind where I'm going to have some big, huge foreground trees that are going to go all the way up to my canvas. So these are kind of at the same plane as where the barn is going to be. So the barn is set back from what's going to be my front trees. So these pine trees or evergreen trees are going to lay like on where the kind of foreground meets the meets that background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm going to be using are black, green, blue, and white. And if I use any other colors, I'll let you know. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to put them in place with a little bit of black and green, and then we're going to add a touch of snow on top of them. I'm not terribly concerned if they dry between these two, between me making the tree and then me putting the snow on, because they're set back in the distance. So if my colors start to kind of blend together, that's okay, because it'll make them look more out of focus that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a teeny tiny bit of black and green, both on the tip of my brush. So just a little itty bit of both on the tip of my brush. When I think of evergreen trees, I'm familiar with the ones that are indigenous to my area, and they look like triangles to me. So I'm going to put quite a few that are going to be over here on the left-hand side and then on the right-hand side to just kind of flank the landscape itself. So I'm going to start by just kind of marking off where I want them. So I'm just going to kind of give myself what I call tree markers, but I guess you could call them tree trunks if you want the more technical term. This just helps me kind of stay focused as to where I want them to appear. I think I want to have maybe one little one kind of scooting in there. My barn is going to be somewhere in this vicinity, so I don't really need to do much in through there. You could put some behind it, but I don't think it's necessary. And then over on this right-hand side, I'm going to just kind of scoot one in through there, maybe a little one poking out the back, one in the front, and then maybe one over on this side here. So that gives me 4 on the left and 3 on the right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take both, again, just a little bit of green and black, and I'm using them both on my brush at the same time so I can have the color variations. And then I'm just going to start to tap that brush kind of in a, using the thin side of my brush to get the edges of that tree. This left-hand side of my tree, fluff that out a little bit too much. The left-hand side of this tree is off the canvas, so that works there. If you're finding it looks all black to you, then just pick up more green. You could also, as you go through this process, if you wanted there to look like there's some in the distance behind here, you could certainly take and just kind of pop up a little fluffy kind of triangular shape behind them if you wanted to. That would be up to you. I think I want to put I think that this one I want to be in the background a little bit. I think I want another one in through. I feel like I want a bigger one kind of somewhere in through here. I'm going to put this one. We're putting another one because I can do whatever I want. I'm just going to put my brush in control here, which was just squishing the paint in it, and then this bottom part, these 3 are just going to kind of merge together in through here. And again, these are just going to be nice and wintry. That looks pretty good. Over on the right hand side, I'm going to do the same thing. And if you need to, for your own purposes, be able to see the difference, let's say you want this one in the back and these two in the front, you can add a little bit more lightness or contrast where they meet, where the trees overlap. So I just picked up a little bit more green, and that's going to give me the ability to see this one in front of that back one. I can do the same thing because my back one, it looks a little bit darker. So I can just take and put a little bit of extra green along those edges because that back one was pretty dark, and now I can see it better. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to go over to the other side. Again, a little bit of green, touch of black on my brush at the same time. I feel like this one's going to be kind of just in the background, so we're just going to kind of tap a little triangle onto that. And then the trickiest part I often find is the most difficult part for people creating these trees is to keep that tip pointy. That's what's going to be the identifying kind of characteristic of these trees. So as you're doing yours, if you're finding this brush isn't the best brush for you to keep that tip pointy, you could certainly switch brushes. You can use a variety of brushes to do these. You could use a fan brush, you could use a round brush, whatever works for you. So now that I've got the trees in place where I want them, what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to put a little bit extra green on this one, just so we can break up that center line. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of snow on them. So I am going to be implying when I do my barn that my light source is to the right. So I'm going to have brighter snow on the right side of them and darker snow on the left side. So my darker snow, I'm going to pick up white with a little bit of blue, and I'm just going to kind of I would, pre-mix it, if you will, on your palette, just so it looks a little bit bluer. And I'm just ever so slightly just kind of tapping. You can even just kind of tap the tip of your brush down, primarily that left-hand side of the tree. Just little tips, little marks. You don't need to do a whole heck of a lot. This does not need to be a fully covered evergreen tree. This is just something that's going to give the viewer the understanding that there is snow on these trees. And then when I go to the right hand side, I just pick up a little bit more white on my brush, and that's going to make that right hand side of the tree look like it's being lit up a little bit more by that light source. The back tree, just a little tip on the right hand side, and then this right hand tree as well, just picking up a little bit more white as I go towards that right hand side. And another thing is, try not to just go left and right. You want to cross over that center area of the tree a little bit, so it appears as though we're seeing the branches coming at the viewer as well. So even if you got to tap your brush kind of in a horizontal way to break up that center, that will make it look a little bit more believable. And I'm thinking I want just a touch more white up at these tippy tops, so just kind of adding just a little extra snow onto those tops. There we go. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I already have some good white on there. I just picked up a little bit more blue, and again, left is going to be my bluer side. Something like this, and again, just cross over that center a little bit. And less is more. The less paint you have on your brush, the more control you're going to be able to keep. So just as you're going through this, if you're losing control, it's probably because you have too much paint on your brush, or maybe you don't have enough paint and you're struggling with pushing it hard to create the marks that you want. So it could be a variety of reasons. So that works for me. Now I'm picking up a little bit more white on my brush to go to the right side. So right here, it seems like I've identified this tree in front of this tree, but I don't really want that. I've kind of wanted this tree in front. So I've got white on my brush right now. I'm going to just identify the edge of this left tree because I wanted that one in front. So I'm just kind of tapping my brighter color down right in front of the other one. And of course, you can put as much bright snow as you want. That's gonna, maybe show that it's a fresh snowfall. So that looks pretty good. A little bit of extra white on that side, and just a teeny tiny bit, just kind of really lightly tapping it. And then this one I wouldn't see because the right side is off of my canvas. So I actually want to pick up just a little bit more. Something down here. There we go. So I'm thinking that that's looking pretty good. So I am going to call it on this step. I am going to be using, we're going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry, and you can put little like fun things at the base and through here if you wanted to. You can wash and dry this brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do I'm going to call it the base coat for our foreground. We're going to do little tweaks and fiddles with it later, but right now I want to get in place where my path is going to be going, or my little tracks leading from the bottom of my canvas into my barn. I want to also kind of get some dark areas established where the base of my foreground trees are going to go, and I want to get a little shadow established to the left of where my barn is going to go. So I want to get a lot of that stuff in place now, so I don't have to fiddle too hard or work around the objects that I'll be placing on later, which are my foreground trees in my barn. So I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm going to use are black, blue, white, and brown. And if I use any other colors, I'll let you know. So what I'm first going to do is just establish where I want my path to go. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black, and blue. So just a little tiny bit of both on my brush, and a touch of water as well. So just black, blue, and a touch of water. I'm going to find myself at the bottom of my canvas, center bottom of my canvas. I'm going to go to the left of that about 3 inches, give myself a marker, and then to the right about 5 inches, or halfway between here and the end of my canvas. So somewhere in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this marker, and I'm going to go up about 4 inches and over to the left just a smudge. This is going to be where the path goes into my barn. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a zigzag line. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to go to the right a little bit, and then to the left past this marker, and then back into it. So again, I have hardly any paint on my brush, so this just kind of controls what I'm going to do. I'm going to take it over to here. This is the halfway point. I'm not going to go much far. I'm not even going to hit the halfway point. I'm going to start to turn it before then. So something like this. And then I'm going to bring this over past that marker by probably, I would say, a good maybe 1.5 to 2 inches. And then you can just kind of swing it around. And it can be a messy line. This is totally messy line. You want this to be farther than that. I probably could even go a little bit farther than that, somewhere in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect here to over here. And this is the widest part of your path, and this is the most narrow. So right around where it kind of just hooks in through here, what I can do is just kind of start to separate that area. And we're going to go something like this. And I don't have to bring it up, maybe just over, and then curve it into this marker in through here. So we've just established that as our kind of trail into the barn. You could put a dark area in the middle too if you wanted it to look like there's, more, melted kind of snow area. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of pick up a tiny bit more black paint and just make this into a pretty shadowy type of area. I'm really just softly manipulating my brush a little bit left to right to make it kind of blend into that snow a little bit. Again, I don't need to do much, just a little something that's going to make it pretty darn dark in these little tracks in the snow. So something like that. Then with my dirty brush, I can come over to this left-hand side. There's going to be a shadow inside my barn, and it's going to kind of travel outside and over in through here. So again, very little bit of paint on my brush. There's actually a lot of water or moisture on my brush right now in order to create that shadowy area in through there. I'm also going to do this down at the bottom of the this left-hand side in through here, as well as a little area in through here. This is where I'm going to be putting my my trees and stuff. I could probably go a little darker than that. I'm picking up a little bit of brown plus a touch of black on my dirty brush just to amp that up just a little bit more. There we go. And then over on this right-hand side, again, I'm going to do it pretty dark down on the bottom right. So I'm picking up just a little bit more black and blue with a teeny touch of water. Again, just to keep it fluid and allow me to just darken up what I already have on there. So that looks pretty good. And then I want to have a shadowy area up in through here as well. So just kind of putting a little shadow in the ground somewhere in through here. So now that I've got my darker areas established, now I can add some lighter areas. So I don't even need to wash my brush. I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint on my brush, on my dirty brush, and I'm going to start to lighten up this back area, which will be behind my foreground trees. Now, because I'm not using a lot of paint on my brush, it's going to allow me to just kind of blend this in as I go and allow it to look really nice and natural. So again, hardly any paint on my dirty brush. I'm pulling this in through this area. I'm watching where my shadows are so I don't, or my dark areas, so I don't over paint, and I keep myself in check as to what I originally wanted to do. And then I've got a little bit of lighter area in through here. So again, this is just a tiny bit of white on my dirty brush. Not a lot of paint, just allowing me to almost kind of scrub it on here. You can put little light areas as it's coming towards that path. So something like this. So I want a little bit light where it's almost meeting that dark. That looks pretty good. And we're going to have, I'm going to pick up white plus a teeny tiny bit of brown. So similar to how we did it in the in those out of focus trees, white with a teeny bit of brown. This is going to add a little bit of warmth to my snow, which is kind of silly for me to say it that way, but it'll add a luminescent value to it. So there we go. And then that looks really nice. And again, we're going to have some foreground trees that'll be right on top of this, so you'll be able to get the depth behind them. So, and then I'm just taking whatever's on my brush right now and giving myself a little light area of snow in through here. This is going to be behind those other trees, meeting kind of that shadowy area, and then maybe just a little bit in through here. And again, we'll be doing another kind of touch-up layer to this. I do want to touch a little bit in through here too, so white with a teeny tiny bit of brown. And again, I'm wiping it off on my paper towel, and I'm going to put this in the opposing kind of track areas. So something like this and like this is going to get that. It's going to get that nice and started. And I'm thinking I'm picking up just a touch more white, maybe just get this a little bit brighter in through here. You don't necessarily want to go all the way white. That's going to be that's probably the trickiest part about this, is to not go all the way white. We can always add little white highlights later for areas that you do want there to be a very bright, like sun hit kind of area. But right now, as you're just building it, I recommend just, not going super duper white. We'll do those little touch-ups later. So I feel like this is pretty good. So I am going to call it on this step. We're going to be using our drawing utensil for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your large brush away, take out something to draw with, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline for the barn. I do recommend before you start this step that your canvas is dry because it's always easier to draw on a dry canvas than it is on a wet canvas. So I'm going to be using my white piece of chalk. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that is comfortable to you. I'm going to guide you through a series of markers. We're going to connect those markers, and by the time we're done, we'll have a nice basic shape for our barn that we'll be able to utilize during the painting process. So I've got mine placed in this vicinity of my canvas. You could put yours wherever you want, but my path kind of leads to my barn, so that's where it's going. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself the center of the bottom of my canvas. I'm going to come to the left about 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to go up from that almost 4 inches. So I'm somewhere in this vicinity, right in through here. Then what I'm going to do is I think I want to be a little to the right of that. I'm going to go, I went too far to the left. I'm going to be right in through here. This is about, so let's go up 1 inch, and yeah, so this is where I want it, right here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vertical line that is almost 3 inches tall. So just draw yourself a line going straight up like that. So mine is about 2 3/4 inches tall. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the left of this about 4.5 inches. So I'm, let's see, so if this was 1.5 inches and this is 4, I'm about 4 inches from the edge of my canvas and through here. I'm going to make myself another dot. We're going to connect that to that. And then of course you can go up about the same amount of distance as you did for this one. So you may not be the exact same height as I am, so you can use a brush or something else as your measuring tool to see how high you did that one. And then you can come over to this side and put a marker at about the same height. So somewhere in through here is going to be that. And now I can just connect these. So I can go across like this, and it doesn't have to be perfectly straight because, you know, this is an old barn in the middle of the woods. So I had an old barn when I grew up, and it didn't look like it was nice and straight, so you don't have to either. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself the center of this top area, so somewhere in through here. I'm going to go to the left maybe about 1/4 to 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to go up about maybe like 2 inches somewhere in through here, give myself a little dot. I'm going to connect here to here and here to here. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. I'm actually going for a little swag in my roof, so you can dip it down just a little bit if you want. And you can even shoot right past this little marker just by maybe about 1/4 inch, 1/8 to 1/4 inch. And then down on the back side, I'm going to do the same thing. The back side could be straight, it could not be straight, whatever you want. And I'm going to overhang this one a little bit more. And then maybe by about 1/2 inch to 3/4, and then I'll draw a little horizontal line like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find somewhere in here that I want an opening for my barn to be. So I'm just going to go to the left of here, maybe almost 1 inch, give myself a vertical line that's almost halfway up, then maybe cut the difference between here and here in half, so maybe somewhere in through here. I think that looks pretty good. And then draw another vertical line that's about the same as that one, and then just connect these two. So now I have the opening for my barn. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the side of my barn on. So I'm going to go to the right of here about 1.5 inches or back to your center point, and I'm going to go up maybe about 1/8 to 1/4 inch, somewhere in this vicinity, so it's up just a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing with this guy. I'm going to go over about 1.5 inches and then down just a tiny bit, like 1/8 inch, something like that. Connect these two with a vertical line. Connect these two, it should be slightly angled, coming down just a little bit. And then this one, I can connect these two, but it should be slightly at an angle like that. So this, in essence, gets smaller as it goes far away, just by a tiny bit, and I hung that too. Then I've got to create my roof. So you can take this line and you're going to mimic it, but because we've made this a little bit smaller on this side, the back corner of the roof is a little bit lower. So I can take mine, I think the corner of mine kind of lines up with the edge of my, in through here. And if I just kind of take my brush and go straight up from that and make myself a mark that's a little bit lower on my canvas than this one, right there is about a good corner mark for my roof. Then when I connect these two, there should be a slight angle to it, going that way or going that way. And then when I connect these two, I'm going to do whatever. If you have a little swag here, you do it there as well. And then they should look pretty darn similar. So something like that. Now I magically have my barn. you can make any little adjustments you want. We're going to use the number 6 round brush for the next step. So you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat for the barn. I'm using my number 6 round brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, red, blue, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using black and brown to create the interior color of my barn. Then I'm going to use red, brown, and black as the siding for my barn, and I'll be using black, blue, and white for the base coat for my snow on my roof. So I'm going to start with my interior and work my way out. So I'm going to do inside here. I am going to have like this little ground area showing too, so I'm going to take a little tiny bit of water on my brush and I'm going to erase this guideline right here. So I want my ground inside my barn to almost take on a little snowy appearance. I'm going to make it pretty dark in through here and then put it a little bit lighter here. So I'm going to start with a touch of black on my brush, and I'm just going to paint in this top right hand corner and the little top portion of this section with a little bit of black. Then I'm going to pick up some brown on my dirty brush and just kind of blend this in like that. And then the floor of my barn, I think I might pick up a tiny bit more black paint. I want it to just kind of disappear inside the barn, so I just picked up a little bit of black and I'm just going to kind of rub this out so you can still see a little of the blue snowish type of look to it, but it looks like it's going into the depths of the barn. So something like that will work out. So and if you can still see blue, we've got a little detail step that we'll be doing later, so any little imperfections we'll be able to tackle when we get to the next step, or the detail step. So now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put my siding on. So again, this line right here can be erased. That was just a guideline for us to draw with. So I'm just going to erase that so I don't get confused. I'm going to be doing vertical siding. I'm going to have this side lighter and this side darker. During this first layer that we're going to do, this area right in through here, because my paint is going to be a little transparent, we're going to still see some of that, but again, in our future step, we will be able to hide that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little bit of black paint on my brush, and I'm going to start up at the top. I'm going to be doing vertical siding on my barn. You could do horizontal if you wanted, but I'm going to do vertical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my black paint, I'm going to go right up near my roof, and then while it's still wet, I'm just pulling it down like this. And I'm going to do that all along my roof line. So I'm going to take it like this, go right up to the edge of that roof. While it's still wet, I just kind of streak it down. So this is going to end up looking like the top of the area underneath that roof is shadowed. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Even though I'm going to want this right side to be a little lighter, I still want to have a little bit of shadow underneath this roof line, so it'll take on a nice three-dimensional appearance. So maybe this side I just don't I don't pull down that those lines as far. So I'm just going to kind of wiggle my brush up and down like that. That looks pretty good. So now I'm going to pick up some brown paint on my dirty brush, and I'm going to create additional vertical streaks. The trickiest part is going to be the horizontal area that meets the top right in through here. So what I'm going to do is something similar to what I did at the top by the roof line. I took some brown paint, and again, I didn't wash my brush, so I'm going to have some darker streaks from time to time. I'm going to go horizontally right where this meets here. While it's still wet, I'm going to pull it up or down, whatever works for you. So that way I have a nice transition into the vertical siding. And then I'm going to just take some more brown. Where it meets the ground, that doesn't matter at this point, because we're gonna you can disguise that with snow when we do that final layer of snow, so don't worry too much about that. And you can see I'm not painting this all the way. I am definitely leaving some lighter. I actually want a little bit more black on this side. I just picked up a little bit more black so I could have a little bit more darkness on this side of the barn. So picked up just a little bit more black. Before I start heading into the red, I just wanted to have a little bit of darkness, maybe even down at the bottoms, to show those little wood slats or the little shadows between the wood slats. So something like that. I'm gonna pick up a little bit more brown just to close this out. We'll hit the red in a second here. I want some brown on this right hand side and less black, so I'm not gonna necessarily put as much black on that right hand side. Now, without washing my brush, I'm picking up red, and my paint underneath is still wet, so I am using that to my advantage and allowing for these colors to intermingle with one another, so it makes it look a little bit more believable as an old rustic barn that's got some chipping paint and things of that nature on it. So again, this is just red, and I'm doing my vertical streaks. This time I'm being a little bit slower than I was with the brown and the black, just so I can make sure I hit everywhere with a little bit of a layer. And again, down by this area in through here, I'm not totally concerned. I mean, I did it nice and clean with the brown. I'm not concerned about the red being really a clean edge at this point. I am going to have a little bit of a wood molding as well around there, so that will help that. Now, if at this point you feel that it's too red, just pick up a little bit of brown. So you can use the red and the brown at the same time. You could even put some more black into it if you wanted to. And I'm going to go pretty dark down this edge here. I actually am picking up a little bit more black right now, just so we can really have a good delineation between this side of the barn and this side of the barn. So that was just a little on the fly decision right there, and just picking up a little bit more red to close out this side. And then on my right side of the barn, just get a little bit more red in through here. Looks nice. And this is going to darken as it dries, because I've used it with a lot of the black and the brown, so the red will darken on this layer. So that's why we're going to be doing a future layer on it to bring it into a nice believable tone. And then I'm just using the remnants on my brush right now to get a little bit in through here, make sure I can still see that corner of the barn. Just picking up a little bit more red. And then once I've got a nice layer on here, I'm going to wash my brush, and let me just get this little bottom. I'm going to wash my brush and hit the roof. So the roof, I'm going to build the color of the snowy roof just like I built the ground. So I'm going to start with I have a little black spot I need to do here too. I'm going to start with, or I'm going to do it with black, blue, and white. But first I'm hitting this little triangle right here with some black. I don't want to miss this. This is the little underside of the roof, so make sure I get that in there. There we go. And I have black on my brush, so that works out just fine. I'm going to pick up more black, a little bit of white, and just a touch of blue. And I'm going to just kind of mix this color on the roof as my base coat for the roof. And again, it doesn't have to be a solid color. It can be definitely kind of a mishmash of tones, because the roof can have, you know, some snow blown off. It can have little heavy spots of snow, but I'm starting with this grayer tone so I can build some good dimension on it. And then I'm just going to bring this right to the edge and just make sure that I've got it as far down as I want. And the edge of your roof doesn't even have to be even either, because if the snow is piled up, it may give it the appearance of, you know, it being lumpy and bumpy and all that good stuff too. So a little bit there. I'm also going to put, not over here, I'm going to put an edge to the, this left side here, just with those colors on my brush, making sure I've got it not too light. There we go. And then just bring this down this left edge. And then we're going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this brush away, take out the number 3 round or a smaller rounder brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the barn. I'm going to be using my number 3 round. The colors that I'm going to use are probably all of them. No, I'm going to use black, white, brown, red, and yellow. And if I need to go into any other colors like blue, I'll let you know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding a second layer to my siding in order to get this right hand side to look lighter, as well as to fill in any spots that might need a little bit of additional layer, but I want to have some lighter tones in here, so I'm going to be using my red, yellow, and white in order to give me some lighter areas. I also want to put a little door on in through here to the tack room, and in doing so I also want to put a little bit more detail on what would be the interior wall of my barn, because if my tack room is here, there's probably going to be a wall right there. And then I'm going to put a door where like the hay loft would be up in through here. And of course you could put any decorative elements you want, and we need another layer of snow on the roof. So I'm going to start with my siding first, because I'm going to want that to be drying while I go and do my other little details before I put my doors on. So I'm going to pick up red, yellow, and white on my brush at the same time. I'm using yellow to counteract any pink hues. So if I just picked up red and white in order to get some lightness in these slats, it may turn pink. So the yellow on my brush is going to help counteract that. And I'm just going to be going up and down, giving myself these, again, more vertical type of streaks. You could certainly be using the number 6 round brush as well, but I feel like I want this to be a little bit more controlled, so I'm using this smaller brush to accomplish this. You can also put a tiny bit of water on your brush in order to get the paint to spread a little bit thinner, to work its way into any little crevices in the canvas that it might be missing. And again, down at the bottom, don't worry about that, because we will we'll take care of that when we do our final little details. I want a little bit more red over in this corner, and this is where I would get rid of any evidence of my guidelines. So like I still have this guideline separating this side from this side, so that's where I just want to make sure I got rid of that. You can also pick up a little bit of brown and white. So if I pick up a little bit of brown and white, that's going to neutralize it, make it look more on the more kind of on the browner side. Of course, it's going to make it look more brown. It's brown. So if you go to red, but you still want that lightness in there, you can certainly pick up a little bit of brown to help neutralize that. So that looks good. Now on this side over here, I don't need to do too much, but I love the tones that are going on in through here, so I definitely want to bring something over here. And I also have some spots that need to be finished. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of red, brown, and yellow on my dirty brush. I'll add a little bit of white in a minute, but right now I just want to make sure that I've got all areas taken care of before I start adding too much lightness to it, because I know that once I add the lightness, it'll soften these tones and make them a little bit duller, and I want to avoid doing that too soon. So again, this is red, yellow, and brown, and if it goes, like I had an area that went a little bit too yellow on me, I'm just pulling in a little bit more red and just making sure I've got those tones where I want them to be. So I'm feeling pretty confident that I can start introducing a tiny bit of white into this side. Again, I'm using a combination of red, brown, yellow, and now a tiny bit of white is going on my brush, just to give myself a couple of lighter areas, but not as light as I did on that right hand side. So something like this, and again, just keeping those vertical brush marks or brush strokes, and that looks pretty good to me. Nice long ones. There we go. So I'm thinking that's pretty good. I do have a couple of areas around the roof that I need to fix, so I'm picking up some black paint just to make sure that I have a good shadow underneath here. Oh, I need to finish that side of the building too. And any spots that I might have missed, this is where I'm going to do that. So I've got a couple little spots in through here that missed being painted, so we're going to tackle those. And if you wanted to bring the shadow down further, you certainly could. That'll be a judgment call on your part. And then I have that looks pretty good underneath there. I have a little area here. I'm picking up just a bit of brown to finish that area, and then I need to do this. I'm picking up a little bit of red. I am going to put a little molding on up and through here in a minute, but just want to make sure I've got these edges the way that I want. So again, any combination of red, brown, yellow, white, and or black can create this effect. So that's looking pretty good. All right, so that's good. While that's drying, I'm going to go and do my rooftop. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I really want it nice and light to show that there is a light source. So I'm going to pick up just white at this point and give myself a nice vibrancy up towards, and try not to run my hand through wet red paint. So I'm going to put it nice and bright up at the top, and you might need, depending on how dark you went on that first layer, you might find that you need a layer or two to get this as light as you want in certain spots. But I'm going to just kind of pull this down the edge, and then I can rub it with the side of my brush, and that's going to give me some darker areas. So I don't necessarily need the whole thing super duper white. I just want maybe some areas that I feel maybe I want them to look like they're piled up a little higher. That's where I can go with a heavier white paint. You could even have it kind of like leaning over if you want it to look like it's a ton of snow and it's got like maybe little areas that have piled over so much they're hanging over the edge. You can certainly do that as well. And then you don't want necessarily a firm line leading into the roof itself, so just rub it in like that. I do want feel like I want this top right edge to be lighter so we can see it nice and well against that background. You could also put like a little chimney on here if you wanted to. You could really have fun with the different elements in this painting. I'm not going to do a chimney on mine today, but you could certainly do one on yours. And then I'm going to bring this light color. I don't necessarily want it as white as that, so I am going to use a tiny bit of blue. I didn't say I was using blue. I was like, am I going to use blue? I guess I am going to use blue. I want a little bit on this left-hand side. I want it to be lighter than what I have on there as that edge, but I don't want it to be as light as what I did on this right-hand side. So I'm just using what I know from, that light source to tell me where to make it the brightest and where to back it off a little bit. So that looks good. I feel like I want a little bit of detail underneath here. I just wiped my brush off. I'm picking up a little bit of brown and black. This underside of the roof right here, I just picked up brown and black. I'm just going to kind of streak down a little detail under this side of the roof, so it looks like it's got, you know, structure to it. So black, brown, and a little bit of water will help me accomplish that. That looks good. And I think this looks pretty good in through here. Maybe just a little shadow underneath that snow line. That looks good. So now I'm going to hit my decorative elements on the barn, which would be any doors or windows or anything like that that you feel would benefit you. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I think I'm going to use black to outline my doors and stuff. So I'm going to have a little door in through here. And again, this is totally up to you how you want these to appear. I'm just going to have like a little tack room door. I'm going to have a hayloft somewhere in, I'm going to put it somewhere in this vicinity, like this, maybe right in through here. And I'm just doing basic shapes. I think I want to have like maybe a little light or something up in through here, something like that. That looks good. And then that looks good with my shaky hand. So then while that's drying, I'm going to put some other details on it in a minute. Or maybe just pull this out a little bit too. I'm going to put some kind of detail on that inside. I'm wiping my brush off. I'm going to pick up brown plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint. So brown plus a teeny tiny bit of white. I want to just give the illusion of some wood slats or something in here. That's way too much white. Wiping my brush off. Picking up more brown. So this is just giving the visual illusion that there's a wall inside the barn. Just something really small. And I feel like I need a little bit more black up in this corner, up and through here, and just get this to disappear inside that barn. And if you had any other work you felt would benefit you down in this region, you could certainly tackle that as well. That looks good to me. Maybe a touch more black down at the bottom of this wall, and then just make it disappear in that little bit of black right next to here. As I'm doing this, I'm like, I need to get rid of my little outline right here. There we go. That looks good. So now I'm gonna make any decorative marks on through here. I think I'm gonna use a little bit of red, brown, and white on my brush at the same time. And if it goes too pink on me, I will definitely pick up a little bit of white. But I'm just gonna do just little moldings. So maybe one here, maybe one's going across the door so it doesn't shimmy weird. I know that diagonal piece is very important for old wooden doors to not go crooked. It has something to do with the construction of it. So again, brown, red, and white. Maybe we've got a little slide arm or something on this one. And I just made a big deal about having a diagonal line, so maybe this one we've got an X. So just a faint little X like that, and then maybe we've got like a little light or something. You could certainly put also like a little wreath or something. I'm going into some yellow and white to give myself just a little maybe light up and through here. Not sure if I like that or not, but it looks all right. I need a little molding on top of the barn itself, or top of the big door, so brown, white, and a little bit of red. And this is just going to be molding right in through here. I don't have a door on this barn to slide. I just wanted to have an open kind of barn, but you could certainly put a sliding door if you wanted to. And then I just kind of fiddle with it, making any little adjustments I want. If I want something to have a little bit more pop, just add a little bit more white to it. If you want, or red, whatever, you know, whatever you feel is necessary, maybe a little doorknob, and you just kind of have fun with tweaking those little details as much as you want. I definitely want to make sure my edges of the barn are complete. And then once you feel that you've got it done, we are going to be using our medium brush, the medium round brush, for the next step. So you can put this small one away, take out your medium round, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our foreground trees. I'm going to be using my number 6 round brush. The colors I'm going to use are black, brown, and white. I'm going to be having one big one on my left hand side, and then I'm going to have 3 on my right hand side, and I'm going to be putting them within these dark areas. So if your dark areas landed somewhere else, then put your tree somewhere else. It would just make sense for them to be in there because we're going to be putting some wintry grassy stuff in there as well. I am going to be using a very loose brush stroke to create these trees. I'm going to have them going all the way up to the top of my canvas, at least this one, and then these 2, and then this one might just kind of shoot off. You can, these are just imagination kind of trees. You can make your trees into whatever way that you want. I'm just going to have a nice kind of solid trunk, and then we'll have some branches shooting off with no leaves because we're going to put snow on them in a little while. So I'm going to start with black, brown, and white on my brush, all 3 colors. I also have the information that my light source is to the right. So when I build these trees, I'm going to have them darker on the left and lighter on the right. But I'm just going to start with whatever happens, happens. So that way I have different tones in my trees, and then I can add the shadows and the highlights. So again, black, brown, and white are on my brush. I'm going to start this tree in through here. And when I do trees, one of my biggest things to make them look pretty natural is making sure that the bottom is a little bit wider at that base than the rest of the trunk. It's not, doesn't happen on all trees, but to me that gives me a really good starting point to make it look pretty realistic. And I'm using a good amount of paint on my brush right now. I also have a tendency to push my brush in different firmnesses as I'm doing this. So if I just go like this, I've got a nice straight line. But if every now and again I push my brush a little bit different, I can have these different widths in the tree trunk itself, and that'll make it look a little bit more natural as well. Again, not going for a specific kind of tree, just going for something that I can hold my hat on and say looks pretty realistic to me. And again, I'm now just kind of going out with some branches. When I'm doing branches, my brain tells me that they are thinnest at the tips because they are the thickest when they're nearing that trunk. So as I do these, I'm constantly hearing that in my head. So as I go towards the tip of the branch, what I'll do is I kind of lift off with my brush. You can also put a little bit of water or liquid medium, or of course you could use a littler brush too. But if I'm using my liquid medium, which for me is water, as well as taking these branches and lifting off as I am going towards that tip, that helps me to, again, make that a more believable type of branch. They can come off in any direction. They can have wiggle to them. They can have straightness to them. Whatever type of tree that you're going for, just keep that branched style pretty consistent. You also want to make them cross over one another. You don't necessarily, if you want it to look natural, those branches don't typically just take up their own space. They're going to cross over each other. So that's another aspect that's going to make it look nice and natural. So I'm digging that one. I'm going to move over to my right hand side. So again, black, brown, and white, and a good amount on my brush. I'm going to just kind of place the bases where I want them here, and then I'll build up. So that's going to be one. This is going to be one. And if you're building your bases like I am, which is just kind of placing them here, don't stop that thickness just here. Just make sure that you pull that thickness up, because otherwise it'll look like a stump, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if you want it to look like that tree is continuing to grow up, you want that trunk to naturally get skinnier as it goes up and not just all of a sudden. And I'm just doing, again, some fun kind of imaginative trees. Maybe this one kind of almost comes over, and maybe that one goes in front of that. Yeah, let's make that one go in front of my house, my barn. I think the trick, one of another kind of trick, if you will, is to make sure that they look balanced. So as I'm going through this, if I have the top of my tree very heavy or with really wide branches and that base is very narrow, my tree won't look balanced. It's going to look like it's going to fall over, or that it's going to fall over, that the wind is going to take it. It's going to be the one that you're going to want to ask your tree removal guy to take away, so it doesn't land on your pretty barn that you just made. You can also carry these and cross them over, so that this is a great border for the edge of your painting. It'll kind of pull that eye right into the barn itself. So again, black, brown, and white. I think I want to have a couple of little small ones kind of shooting up in this direction. And again, just have fun. Don't feel the need to make it exactly as mine. Once I give you the explanation and start painting, it's, I just have fun with where all of these, just kind of letting my brush go and feel, letting those little branches kind of make themselves. And again, just making sure that I cross them over one another, and I have little tips and bigger tips, especially if you're doing a tree with no leaves on it. That can be a little bit trickier. When we get to the snow portion, if you do have any leaves that you're not sold, or any branches that you're not sold on, and you want to kind of disguise them a little bit, the snow will help us do that. I'm just adding a couple of more little tiny ones because I liked those ones, so now I want to do more. And of course, you can make as many as you want. I feel I'm ready to move on to my next tree here. So black, brown, and white. We're going to have this one kind of coming over in this direction. And again, once I've got my my base color on here, I can start to add minimal amount of detail for highlights and shadows. I don't want to do too much. I don't want to overpower it. So I am going to be just adding little bits, because I know, again, that I'm going to have my snow on these trees, which is going to take up and give the viewer a lot to look at. So as I'm doing these, I am just enjoying the process, making, some fun different aspects of these trees. I'm not terribly concerned about them being uber perfect at this point, because I know, again, I'm going to be adding lots of little pieces of snow and stuff. I think that looks pretty good. I'm not sold on this one in through here, so we're gonna make that more into this part in through here. And again, just pushing that brush just a little bit to give that tree a little bit more shape, form. That definitely helps to sell the story of it being a more realistic tree. And I think I'm just going to have a little guy over in through here, and then we'll hit the idea of some highlights and shadows in order to get you moving and developing these as some nice, believable trees. And again, you can have ones in front, behind, wherever you want the the little branches to go. That's totally up to you. I did have mine kind of allowing for some of that background to be visible, but you of course can make yours whatever way you want. So now that I've got them in place, I'm going to add a little highlight and shadow to them. So I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm going to pick up black to start, and I'm going black on the left, and I'm going to go white on the right. But I don't need it just a firm black line. So if I want to start with black like that, and then I just kind of gently move it towards that right a little bit. Again, you don't have to do a lot, just something that's going to give that darkness over on that left-hand side, and also maybe tell the information of the texture of the bark. I'm putting a little bit more black with a touch of water on my brush. You can also separate branches with this. So if I take a little bit of black on this left branch, or on this branch, and put it on the left, that would make this branch pop out from the one that it is attached to. So I can take this and I can do the same thing here. And now you've got a tree that kind of splits right in through here. So you can use those highlights and shadows to give yourself a tree that's got a lot of dimension to it. And if you can just put those shadows in a nice strategic place. And then up at the top, I'm just going to add a couple of shadows within some of these branches. So again, this is just black, adding these little tiny shadows. And you know, if the light is to the right, you can put the little shadows to the left. And again, I don't need to do it on every single one, but a couple, it will allow that to be nice and dimensional. Same thing over here, just adding a little bit of black in through here, maybe a little bit in through here, and then just kind of finessing it, rubbing it a little bit towards that right, so it's not just a line, but it's something that looks like we've added some. It looks like the tree has some nice dimension to it, and something like that looks good in through there. Maybe a little bit on this bottom side, in through here, and again, it's just a little bit of black, allowing for me to add this dimensional element to the trees. This one already had it in through here, so that's pretty good. Maybe a little bit over in through here, and then this one over here, and then I'll just add a quick little highlight. And if your trees are too dark for you and you wanted them to be lit up a little bit, you could certainly use more white and brown, but I wanted mine to really show the snow when we get to the snow, so I knew that adding these nice little shadows in through here would work out well. And maybe this will cross this one. That'll show that one in front of there. That looks good. So now I'm going to wipe my brush off, or wash my brush, pick up a little bit of white with a little bit of water. You could even do white plus brown. I got white plus a little bit of brown, and just little highlights here and there is going to, again, on the right hand side of the tree. I don't need to do much. That was probably a little bit too much. I'm picking up a little bit of brown now. Just a little bit over on that right hand side, and you can see how I'm kind of introducing it and giving it a little bit of texture as it's going. Oh, I like that brown now that I'm seeing it. So white and brown is my highlight. And again, the viewer is going to understand that highlight and shadow the best on the trunk, because the trunk is the biggest part. So white and brown, and I'm going over on this right hand side to add that, and just blending it into the main part of that trunk. And again, I'm going to add snow later, so this is just my tree colors right now, and just a little bit over in through here. And then once you've got this done, we're going to use I feel like I want to use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this medium round brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the snow on the ground and on the trees, the foreground trees. I'm using my number 6 round. The colors I'm going to use are black, white, blue, brown. I might use a little red too, and yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first focus on my ground and make sure any little areas behind these trees or by my barn that I feel need finishing, I'm going to finish them. When I go to do my snow on my trees, if I've bumped into any of these trunks, I can certainly correct them then, or we do have a final step where we're going to be putting little pieces of grass and a tiny fence, so you could correct those if you find yourself bumping into them. But what I want to do is I just want to maybe put another like fluffy layer on these tracks and these edges, so they really look like they're, you know, the fluffiest of them all. Put a little bit of shadow maybe underneath or right where the barn meets the snow. Make sure I've cleaned all that up. And then we'll be good to go. And then we'll put some snow in the trees. And when I do the snow in the trees, if I feel I want to do any additional branches, I can certainly do that as well. So I'm going to start. With my with back here, because I want to just add just a itty bitty bit more lightness. I feel like I've got a good transition into where the tree line is, but I feel I want just a tiny bit more brightness on a little bit of it. So I'm just picking up a little bit of white paint, and I just kind of want to add just these little pops of lighter snow. So I don't need to do much. You could even add a tiny bit of water to your brush. I feel like I just wanted to make sure it read as white snow and not blue snow. So that's where I'm just feeling like I wanted to add just a itty bitty bit more in through there, maybe a little bit more as it's coming around this far side of this tree, like maybe the light source is catching some good, some good snow in through here and just illuminating it on the other side of the tree. So just little pops like that will help to sell the story of it having different thicknesses and stuff. You could even darken it by the tree line if you felt that that would benefit you. And you can see where I just ran right into my tree here. I'm picking up a little bit of black just to correct that now. You can correct it later or now, whatever works for you. So now that I've got that back area, I want to hit near the barn itself. I'm going to pick up a little bit of black, blue, and white all on my brush at the same time, because I know that I'd have some darker snow right along the edge, as if it's kind of shadowed right by the barn. So something like that. I feel like I have a little area I need to close up there. Even on this side, right in through here. I don't want it to look like my barn is floating, so this little bit of color right where it's meeting the barn. I added more blue on this side just so it would look lighter than what I did on the left-hand side, and this also is closing off any area that I might have missed leading at the bottom of that barn. I just keep putting a tiny bit of water on my brush to spread this around, get it mixed in with the existing layer that's already on there. I'm going to be putting a little fence, so I'm going to bring a tiny bit of this darkness right in here. This will be my little shadow for my fence, like that. So just itty bitty bit. I'm now picking up a tiny bit of white paint on my dirty brush just to make sure that this looks nice and fluffy right in through there. There we go. That looks good. Over in through here, I'm feeling like that's looking pretty good. I just want to add some additional kind of brightness on these guys in through here. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of white and blue. So just a little bit, maybe a little bit more white. I might go a little bit of white and brown too, and I'm just going to kind of add some little pops of brighter areas. I'll spread them out a little bit so they have soft edges to them, but I want it to just feel like there's little kind of mounds of snow in between here. So I'm just moving my brush just a little bit And I also want it to look a little bit darker down at the bottom of my canvas to pull the eye in that way. So down at the bottom I will add a little bit more, I think I'm going to pick up brown, blue, and white, and this will get it to go just a little bit darker on these mounds down in through here. And again, you can use a little bit of water on your brush, whatever works for you, to just spread it out a little bit so you're not taken away from what you've already done. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of white in order to get some nice kind of fluffiness along some of these edges. So I just picked up white, and I feel like I want some in through here. And I think for me, one of the biggest things for snow is I feel like it all has lots of gradients. Like it just blends into the next tone. So as I'm doing this, I'm trying not to have things really sectiony. I'm trying to, wherever I put like this light spot, I make sure it blends with whatever's next to it. And that again will help me visually feel like it's soft snow as opposed to just sections of like grass and stuff like that where you see that texture to it. I feel as if snow wants to look soft and has, so those colors just gradate into each other. I feel like I want just a little bit more in through here. So that looks nice. I was considering using a little bit of red and yellow because I feel as though we could have lots of reflective qualities within snow. So if you want to add, you know, little pinkish hues, maybe if you have a little sunset going or something along that line, I just wanted to kind of show you how you could in essence do that. I just added a tiny bit of red to my brush. And you can add a little with the white, and you can add a little bit of water on it too. And you can just give yourself these little almost like hues of color as if it's twinkling from, you know, reflecting maybe from the barn. Maybe you put a little bit of that over by the barn, but very, very subtle. Nothing that's so colorful that people are like, oh my God, you have pink snow. And then in these areas underneath the trees, I want to have some wild grass going. So this is where I'm going to use a little bit of my brown and yellow. So I've got brown and yellow on my brush right now, and I'm just going to I'm taking my brush, I have very little bit of paint, and I'm almost doing that rubbing technique like we did with the background trees. I'm going to have some grass on top of this in a few minutes. But this is going to give me the illusion of the softness from the grass. It'll give me a nice kind of base to work from. I feel I need to go a little bit darker underneath, so I'm picking up a little bit of blue, black, and brown. So just at the base of it, wherever that base may be, again, having it blend into that snow is what's going to make it look nice and kind of natural. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm just taking whatever the remnants are on my brush plus a little bit of my brown and yellow and just kind of giving myself these little pop-ups. You could even use a tiny bit of red and yellow if you wanted it to look a little more on the orangey side. So, and I'm just rubbing my brush. I don't need to do anything really tricky here. Just taking those colors and creating what's going to be kind of a little backdrop or a soft illusion for the grassy stuff I'm going to put in. So I just keep picking up these colors and just rubbing that in. I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue, black, and brown and water and just make sure that I've got a nice darkness at the bottom side of here. So just kind of wiggling that brush a little bit. And then once we've got this done, we're going to be using our small brush. Oh, wait, we need snow on these trees. Hold on. I'm like, I feel like I'm done, but I don't feel like I'm done. So wait a minute, we got to put snow on the trees. So washing and drying my brush, that looks like a nice base for those. And I'm going to be doing the same thing I was doing on these back trees, which is I'm going to start with some blue and white. And I'm actually going to mix it around a little bit so I ensures that I don't go too light too quickly, so just a little bit of blue and white. And again, this snow to me sits on branches, so you can just take your brush and really just kind of push it a little bit to give yourself these little kind of clumps on the branches. You can have it clump up in these little crevices. You can have it really sitting wherever you want it to. You can have a ton or none. That's going to be totally up to you. You can have it riding the entire branch if you want, or you can have it just kind of clumping in it. You can even have little like speckles of it along the side of your trunk if you feel like you want it kind of piling up or sticking to the side of your trunk. That's going to be up to you how invasive you want it to be or full you want it to be. I just picked up white now, so once you've got some of the blue on there, you can come in and put the same idea with white on. So you've got different tones of that snow, and wherever you feel that you need some extra bits of snow, put them. You know, again, it doesn't all have to be white. I am very reluctant to put super duper white on, but if you feel that it's going to benefit you for your storytelling of it, then feel free to do so. Or if you need it to pop out a little bit more in front of something, that extra bit of white will help do that as well, give it higher contrast. So I'm going to just put some blue, that light blue kind of tone throughout the rest of these trees. This also helps to put one in front of the other. So if I wanted that branch to look like it's in front of that one, I can just put a little bit. This one I definitely want to look like it's in front of that one. And again, as much as you want. If you want a branch where you don't have one, just pick up a little bit more black and brown, and you can add more branches as you go along. That's going to be up to you. If you felt that you needed that top to be a little bit more full, or you know, whatever the case may be, that's going to be up to you. Going back to my light blue, just adding a little bit more snow on these guys, and as much as you want is totally up to you. And if you find that you want it to look like there is some leaves left on the branches, you could certainly add just little puff balls of snow, and that's going to make it look like you've got some leaves left on the tree. So if you wanted it to look like an early snowfall, you could put little clumps of leaves and then put the snow on top of those. So that's another way to just kind of have some fun with it and make it your own. I've been seeing posts all this week about early snowstorms, so you can certainly, if you're feeling that that's part of your world, and you can put some on yours as well. So again, I'm still just into my light blue right now. Maybe we've got a little kind of coming up, clumping on the bottom of this tree, and now I'm going to go into some white just to pop on little bits. You could also put like little bird's nests in your trees. I'm going pretty heavy on my brush right now, not quite sure why, but I'm feeling like it's working, and I'm enjoying just kind of dabbling these little amounts of white throughout the tree. And again, you can put them near the light blue, you can put them in little clumps in the crevices of the tree. Whatever works for you is totally fine. That's what snow is all about. And then once you've got this done, we are going to be using our small brush for the next step. I'm sure of it this time. So you can, make as much snow as you want, put, additional branches on, hide branches. You can disguise branches by just using the same kind of colors that you used in the background. And then once you've got that done, you can put this brush away, take out a small detail brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to do for the next step is I'm going to paint a little fence, and I'm going to paint grass around my trees. I'm using my small number 3 round brush. The colors I'm going to use are black, brown, red, yellow, and white. And if I use any other colors, I'll let you know. I'm going to start with a little bit of black and brown. on my brush to create my fence. I'm just having a little fence coming out the edge of my my barn in through here, and it's just going to wrap around here. So I'm going to just do a couple of little posts. So I'm going to do one right in through here, and these don't have to be straight up. One right here, maybe one right here, and then we'll do another one kind of right here. So again, it doesn't have to be super straight. Oh, maybe we'll do one right here too, like that. And then I'm going to connect them with some horizontal or some connecting. So that's the post, this is the rail. So I'm going to go from the edge of my barn right here and just connect. Again, I'm just with some black and brown and whatever dirtiness happened on my palette. So black, brown. I'm going to do 2 rails like this, and then I'm going to let that dry for a minute. I'll put some snow on it after it dries for a minute. I'm going to use this black and brown to start my grass. So I've got black and brown on my brush, and I really just want this to look like wild little grass that oops, I've just picked up some gray, hold on a second. Wild little grass that has sprung up underneath the tree because it wasn't mowed. So I'm just gonna put these little pieces, having fun. I don't need to do much, just little wispy kind of appearance, adding more water to my brush, little tiny pieces coming out over here. Can even put them on, you know, in front. I just try to make them very inconsistent. That's going to be my MO. Just Mother Nature, wildness. They are just carefree. Don't worry about if yours look like mine. Just make them look like yours. They are just little pieces of grass that can come in all different kinds of ways. So you can have some down and through here. Some they can be back and through here. You could even put little sticks with snow. I might even put like a little, you know, put a little stick in through here. And then we'll put some snow on it. So once I've got those in place, I'm going to let that dry for a minute and go back to my fence. So my fence, I'm going to pick up a little bit of red and brown so I can have just a little bit of that same color as my barn in it. So just a little tiny bit of red and brown. I'm going to do just the rails. I'll do, I guess you could do the post too, but it's up to you. So that looks good. Now I'm going to just pick up a little bit of white. You could do blue and white. I think that I'm going to put it so minimal it's not going to matter if it's bright white or not. And I'm going to put little dots on the tops of my posts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to put just a little kind of light tap down my post. Again, I'm just using a little bit of white, but you could certainly make yours anything you want. And then I'm going to pick up that white and just put a little snow on the top. So again, not a super straight line, just something that's gonna say that the snow is kind of just resting on the top of that fence. And if you felt that you needed a little bit more shadow underneath it, you could certainly pick up a little bit of black and white or black, blue and white or whatever you feel to enhance that shadow underneath if you felt it would be beneficial to you to do so, to ground that fence. Just picked up a little bit more white just to, there we go, disguise it a little bit. That looks nice to me. So now I'm going to go back to my grass, and this is where you can use any combination of, you could use red, yellow, you could even use green too if you wanted that to be impactful, but I think I'm going to use red, yellow, brown, and white, and just see what happens here. Red, yellow, brown, and white, and I'm going to just give myself, I know I need a little bit more brown and yellow. I just want it to look like like it's dried, autumny, kind of late seasonal grass that is, you know, again, just popping its head through the snow. I am going to put a little bit of snow on it too. So this again is just a little minimal effect that if you can get it in, great. It's something that can really sell the story of this being just, you know, a wild country setting. I'm going to go ahead and do it over here too. So yellow, brown, red, and white. And just maybe even a little bit of water on my brush. Just little pops of these dried pieces of grass. Trying not to control my brush, just letting my brush kind of have fun, wiggle it, vertical, horizontal, curves, you know, grassy, wild stuff. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to put a little bit of snow on these guys. If you felt that you needed anything else, if you wanted, like I'm going to pick up a little bit of that blue and white on my dirty brush. If you felt that you wanted any like additional sorting out at the bottom, you could certainly add that in through there. I think that looks pretty good though. So now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, make sure that I don't have any of those yellows on there, and I'm going in for my blue and white again. So blue and white is going to start my little snow making, and I'm just going to put little tips on some of the little edges, just a couple little pieces of snow, just kind of sitting within these guys. I don't need to do much, just itty bitty bit. Think of it as just mark making. You're taking and you're making marks to imply, give an impressionistic type of appearance, give the impression of this is something with snow potentially sitting on it. And then I want to put a little bit on this. I got a little stick coming out here now, so we're going to put a little bit of that light blue on that. That looks nice. And now I'll pick up a tiny bit of white paint, and again, when I go lighter to the white, I'm putting it in a smaller area. I'm taking up less real estate with this. Oops, I just picked up red. With this last bit of white that I'm doing. So just these little kind of twinkles here and there are going to allow me to get that on there. You could even, as you're passing along the road, you could put a couple little white twinkles in there too, and then maybe just a couple little up in these guys in through here. And then once I've got that done, I would definitely step back from it and see if there's anything additional that I feel could help move my vision along, or if I feel like that's it and I feel like everything I wanted to say has been said in my painting, then I'm good. And we will be using this same small brush for the next step. So once you've got yours to a comfortable resting place for yourself, you can wash and dry this small little brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the lower left or the lower right. I think I'm gonna go lower left on this one with, I'm going black with a little bit of water on my brush. I like to sign mine with my initials, but you of course can sign yours with your first name. You could make up a special symbol. You could sign it on the back. You could hide it within your composition. Whatever you want to do to identify your painting as your painting, you get to make those decisions all on your own. And that's going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very cozy winter scene, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.